Assalamu alaikum everyone. Good evening, Masa al khair. Thank you for joining another Let's Talk session. Always very happy to be back to welcome you on another session of successful story with one of our very valued alumni of Zayed University. As announced, this session will be inshallah in English. Please feel free to leave your questions in the comments, and hopefully the guest of tonight and myself will go through them to answer all. Walaikum salam wa rahmah. We'll give it a few minutes as usual before we start and before we introduce the guest of tonight. Very nice to see another ZU alumni supporting us on the comments. Thank you, Saeed. Qaisar, I'll be introducing the guest in a few minutes. I'm just trying to catch up with people who have posted our post as a notification to join the session and not to miss any of it. Today's session is very special because we're welcoming one of our valued Zayed University alumni that graduated from the very first cohort of Zayed University back in 2002. Not only that, but also the experience and the journey that she'll take us through is incredibly special. We'll give it a start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you again for joining another session of Let's Talk. Introducing myself, I'm Hind Al-Khayal from the alumni team of Zayed University, and always truly a pleasure to be part of Let's Talk sessions or series to welcome another Zayed University alumni to share her success story and showcase how proud we are of our alumni and specifically of her. Today's session is aligned with the Mental Health Week of Zayed University, organized by the Student Counseling Center, Health and Wellness Services, as well as the month of October, which is known as the month of mental health and a lot of health events. Our guest speaker for tonight is a graduate of Zayed University from a bachelor degree of the very first batch of Zayed University, who graduated from the social and behavioral sciences back in the day, which is psychology, and was lucky enough to be a master graduate of psychology in education with the British Psychology Society recognition from University of Bristol, as well as a doctorate of clinical psychology, mashallah, from King's College, UK, and specifically London. Very pleased and very honored to welcome Dr. Sarah Marzooqi for tonight's show. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Sarah, and welcome on Let's Talk.
Walaikum salam, Hind, and everyone. Thank you for the nice introduction, and I'm really honored to connect back to ZU and the ZU community. It is such a pleasure. Thank you.
You're most welcome. We're really very happy and honored to have you back after a very long time, and even prouder of your great success or career success journey that you will take us through, hopefully, tonight.
Thank you. It is an honor to be back and to be connected back to, I would say, a motherland, ZU. This is how I feel about it.
Dr. Sarah, before we start, if you introduce yourself a little to the audience to know you more. Who is Dr. Sarah?
Today I'm a clinical psychologist by profession. I work at Al Jalila Children's Specialty Hospital. I work under the Mental Health Center of Excellence, and my job is purely clinical. However, we also contribute in research and developing services and program. And we do also take a part in the community projects and services to support mental health in general. Back in the day, I was a very lucky ZU graduate, to be honest. And I kind of try different ways to carry on this career, and to honestly make myself reach my highest potential in terms when it comes to mental health, or the work as a clinical psychologist, or as a psychologist in general.
Dr. Sarah, talking about back in the day when you were a student at Zayed University, it's a very different time. It was a very different awareness about the mental health. How did you choose this major, and why did you choose it in the first place?
Of course, the stigma of mental health was, there at that time, and people didn't really understand what a psychologist is and what this major comply. They had very negative images associated with it. Maybe it comes from media, or unfortunately, and unprofessional practices in the past. So to be very honest, back in the days, people were not very supportive of the idea of getting into mental health and psychology, and it was challenging times. However, I think the university environment at that time were so rich and supportive that we all, I think, at that time bought into the idea that everything is possible, and we can do it. And I think we went with it. And I think we tried our best to even have the psychology emphasis in our degrees, because, at that time, it wasn't a full developed major like nowadays. And with the help of different professors, people who really believed that this profession can grow. And I know now the numbers have increased compared to the first batch of graduates from this bachelor. So it wasn't easy, but it was definitely worth it and was rewarding. I think the stigma is everywhere. It's not just here in the UAE. However, once you get into the grips of the work itself, you can see that it's not just related to the clinical field. So it's not just related to the health field, but basically it's related to any work that has anything to do with people, and we can talk more about this. I don't know if I answered your question, Hind, or yeah.
With the time passing by, and after earning your master's and doctorate degree, and the COVID-19 situation, how do you see the future of mental health and the awareness about it?
Well, if you allow me to talk first about the UAE, UAE as a country, we are only approaching our 49th year, and comparing this time to the time when I started, getting into this major, things have changed tremendously. Nothing but developed or have been growing. So, for example, there is a national policy for mental health. It's been there since the early 80s. However, it has always been developed, this policy, and every year or every couple of years, you'll see that there is a revision and more articles have been included. So there's a lot of emphasis on promoting awareness, promoting prevention, and conducting research in the field, and expanding the services, developing the services, especially during COVID time. You can see that there is a lot of national programs for supporting the well-being and mental health of people during these challenging times. And it's not just coming from the health sector, this is what's the amazing thing. It was coming from different sectors. You can see different ministries, the private sector, the government sector, the schools, the universities. Everyone was trying to promote and increase awareness and actually develop services. So if you think about the UAE as a newborn country, I would say, compared to, for example, the UK, where I went, the national system in the UK is 50 years old. Just the national healthcare system, not the country. But we as a country, we are not even 50 years. However, we have services, honestly, as good as things that is developed everywhere else. And we have done that in a short amount of years. The other thing is, if you think about the development of services as permanent, you will see that there's indirect support for mental health through awareness, through promotion and prevention. So this can be done indirect through schools, universities, organizations, and then through direct services. Like today, for example, Hind, if you go to the community services or the primary care services, let's say, you will see that some of the doctors, and a lot of them, will pick up quickly on the mental health symptoms, and therefore they will refer the patient to the direct pathway. So this is prevention and treatment and awareness all at once, at a very lower level. They are not even at the specialized service. So I'll give you very simple examples. We get referrals from school, universities, and also primary healthcare centers. So they are not specialized in the field. Still, they can pick up, on these early signs, for example, of autism, and do the referral. This was not existing even 10 years ago, I think. It wasn't as developed. But this is another level where afterwards we have the community kind of services that we have. And on top of that, then the specialized service and the long-term kind of hospitals for the complex cases. So people think if psychology or mental health, they always link it to the, long-term psychiatrist, hospital and the chronic kind of and the severe type of it. But that's actually not relevant because, the statistics actually say 1 in every 3 people will have a mental health issue. So it's very common, but it's very much normal. Because if I ask you, did you ever have a headache? You'd say yes. And people will not look, will not be, astonished that you had the symptoms. However, we go through life and through life you go through different events. Some of these events are negative. Some of these events are not preventable, like, for example, COVID-19 and the impact of it on well-being and mental health and economy and everything else. And we have no choice other than to adapt and to support whatever whatever we need to be well and mentally, psychologically, physically, as much as we can. So we can see, if I go back to your question, that the services is definitely developing and growing, and from a government perspective, there's always policies. I know the government is also working on establishing very specific policies to promote and actually also protect the individuals with mental health issues. So this is in a very small scale in terms of the UAE, if I can say. And in the recent years, you can see that a lot of ministries and government entities, not just health, have been promoting and doing their best to prevent and treat and support awareness and conduct research related to mental health issues and related to well-being. In terms of science, it's been proven over and over that there's no health without mental health. Basically, mental health is very much connected to physical health. You cannot separate the two, right? And this is evident even in our everyday life, if we think about it. So actually, this career path is unlimited. If you think of any sector, it will be relevant to psychology. So of course, my passion is within clinical psychology. So I like the health profession and to work in the health profession and to work with mental health diseases and issue. But also my profession is not limited to the psychiatrist problems, but also it's related to the medical field. Today, our doctors, for example, we have a link with Mohammed bin Rashid University of Medicine here in Dubai. And I'm very proud to be actually an adjunct professor of psychology. So we go to medical students and we teach them about, the basic and the biological, basics and psychological and social basics of behavior. And you would think, why, doctors have to understand about behavior and the different factors affecting behavior, because it's very relevant, and it helps with prevention and treatment. If this patient, for example, did not comply with medication, it's a behavior. It's not about medicine anymore. It's much more than that. So that's why we have to, understand and teach, psychology and all the behavioral limited. And this is just the medical field. But in all other fields, psychology is very much relevant. I don't know if this is beyond even what you asked, but
No, it's very eye-opening and interesting to know more about the mental health sector here in the UAE and how much it have developed with time. Maybe as individuals in the society, we don't really pay attention a lot on the sector, or we tend to be very busy in our lives and not look at the different arms of that is offering help for us from the government and from the different clinical arms or entities. So it's really very eye-opening. Thank you for this. I wasn't much aware of it.
My pleasure.
Another thing I would like to know is, back in the days, how did you develop your experience to be able to enroll in an international university abroad, as well as to build your experience? Masters usually needs experience, and you're now more clinical, so that's something very specialized.
True. So back in the days, to be very honest, we were very lucky at the university because, as I said, the environment we were in were very supportive and encouraging environment. We had values like, very much based on being passionate about what we want and just follow this passion. We didn't see it as an obstacle at all. I think if we did, I wouldn't have been here today. If we had that in mind, that, oh my God, my field is not developed, I have no support, people are stigmatizing me. Of course, I did receive comments even from, I can't remember the name of the professor, but there was one professor who said, I don't think you guys gonna make it, to the major. It won't happen. And this is within our first year of college. Of course, what happened is we graduated, with the psychology emphasis. That professor actually did not complete that year in the university. But this did not really stop us from really following our passion. There were real obstacles, to be very honest. But I think what helped is, not just wishing, is honestly making commitment and making things happen, and taking advantage of opportunities. And I think I was very much, I had the advantage to volunteer at centers for individuals with determination, and accordingly I tried to gain my experience. At that time, I remember myself and a very dear colleague of mine, we were the first interns from Zayed University to Al Amal Hospital, which was a whole new world with the big stigma. But that was, really an opportunity for us to build that experience. As I said, the foundation gave us skills. If it wasn't really relevant directly to psychology, but it gave us those values, those skills to pursue with our passion to pursue. And I remember even the counseling center, the advising center, all of them, they were like, they never said, oh, it's impossible, I don't think you guys will make it. They actually did pave the way. And our professors used to get, in touch with us even after graduation. I used to go back to my professor and ask her, what do you think of those graduate programs? Which one would you recommend? And they were always supportive. They were really keen for us to pursue with our education. So it's really about, the environment and the skills that we gained. Maybe the skills were not as great in terms of psychology foundation, because it was just the beginning, but the other skills were amazing. And the values that we kind of inherited from the university back then. They even enrolled us in a leadership program. I don't think it exists anymore. It used to be called Athena leadership program. I don't know. Maybe the old faculty would remember that. And within that program, I remember this very vividly, that they've asked us to do like an exercise. And this exercise were meant to, for me to write a letter to my future self, like in a 10 years time or 20 years time, which at that time seems crazy, that you would make it after 20 years time. And they asked us to write, I think, a list of, if I can remember, maybe at least 5 things that we want to accomplish. And we think at that time it was impossible, And remember that time, things were not as developed. Even culturally, it was not that easy. It wasn't very common for people to go and study abroad and pursue their education at that time. But it actually gives me goosebumps now that I crossed most of that list. And within those lists is actually going abroad and doing my doctorate or my master. And it's not about wishful thinking. It wasn't about, I wish I'll be this and this is how I did accomplish. It's about taking the steps and really being patient, I think. Yes, for me, I think it took over, I wouldn't exaggerate, but it took over 10 years for me to get to where I want to be, which is in my life, it's worth it. You know, it's worth the wait, it's worth the efforts, it's worth, you know, the compromising other stuff is definitely worth it. So nothing comes easy. However, if you are passionate enough, there is a way. There's definitely a way. If I could make it, you know, at coming from those days, I think definitely graduates now can make it if they pursue. The other things I want to highlight about, you know, it's really asking other people, getting the advice from professors, you know, the mentors at the university. We stayed connected to the university. Um, and I remember some of my recommendation letters actually came from professors from the university. I think GPA at that time definitely was one of the factors to get grants or to get, you know, scholarship is still a factor, I think, nowadays. So I wouldn't say, oh, you have to have a high GPA and that's it. No, it's, yes, you know, academically, you know, this plays a part, but this is not the only thing. You will have to be patient. In our profession, it's not about, I just know this and I've studied it and that's it. Because knowledge in psychology, it's not just about facts, you know, it's more about skill based. So to get a skill, you cannot just know about the skill and, you know, you'll be able to perform well. To get the skill, you have to do it over and over. Not just that, someone have to monitor you or to guide you and correct you as you go. So if we calculate this, it means it needs time. So it is impossible for someone to graduate and expect that now I'm a psychologist and I will be able to do whatever other people are doing or whatever other psychologists are doing. It's really not realistic. However, the pathway is to gradually grow, and it is possible. And today, compared to any other time, we have master programs. Hopefully, inshallah, one day we have also doctorate training. And as I said before, I'm referring to my field, which is the health psychology and the clinical psychology. But psychology can be actually a contributing division in so many other sectors. The American Psychological Association, it has 54 or 52 different divisions. So it's one, clinical psychology or health psychology is one of them, but there's so many other divisions. If you look at, for example, industrial psychology, organizational psychology, business, right? And when you talk about HR, training, research, human resources, well-being of employees, this is all related to studying behavior and dealing with behavior. All the organizational and assessment tools related to personality, it's all related to actually psychology. If you take the aviation sector, you will see that they have their own psychology departments. So they don't just have a psychologist, they have a psychology department. But this is different. It's organization psychology. In any other sector, there's sports psychology, right? You know, in media and marketing and you know, policy making, and you know, criminal justice, right? Social services, also educational sector, right? University, schools. Actually, even the ministers. I remember we were, you know, in a very special, you know, brainstorming session with under one of the ministers, and we were, you know, there was a talk about actually having psychological services in every government entity for the employees, because it all matters. If you want to know why there's employee turnover, and you don't want to waste resources, you have to understand the dynamics, how the different factors is contributing to this. And but with this, you need a psychology background or psychology graduate. So if I cut a long story short, you can find psychology relevant to anything to do with a human, basically. To be realistic, yes, these sectors are not all developed in the UAE, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist or we cannot even create them. Back in the UK, I remember one of my colleagues who trained with me. Um, she's a British, but when she finished her clinical training, she went and worked in a hospital, and she's a psychologist for the doctors. So she's not, seeing patient as patient. She's being the support and the psychological support and the space for doctors. This job is not very common in the UK, but it was created. So I do see even more jobs coming up, and I don't think it a dead profession. If we think it is, it will be. If we look at facts, then for me it wouldn't have been possible today. The other thing is we are all responsible to make it easier for the generations to come as well, and hopefully this is part of it. This is part of our mission is to make it easier and for the other graduates to get to where they are.
Indeed, it's a very optimistic talk, honestly, yet very realistic at the same time. It really gives so much push and hope to psychology students today who sometimes doubt themselves when they're on an obstacle or on any of the challenges that we all go through and will continue going through. Um, you have clearly explained how working in a hospital is, or as clinical psychologist, yet to open the doors for different fields and being a psychologist part of it. So it's really the doors are open, but you need to, as they say, knock them.
Yeah, and I know I've actually had the pleasure to meet a lot of recent psychology graduates from Zayed University. And I was very impressed with their skills and knowledge base, I would say, but I would say research skills. They actually have excellent research skills. And if I was an employer, I would definitely employ them. So they don't have to be the clinical psychologists, but they can be also an excellent researchers. And psychology is a science. So, by many aspects, we need the support of it in different fields.
Indeed. With COVID-19, we have clearly seen how much it helps and how much it takes a very big and important part of our lives, which we tend to ignore or we were simply not taught to take care of. Um, I have been asked a question of how is it being a psychologist in a hospital, dealing with different patients, different disorders, different challenges. How do you deal with yourself in the end of the day?
To be honest, for me, it's a very fulfilling job. And that part of my job is the most fulfilling, actually, which is my interaction and my job with patients. Yes, we do work with complex cases and the complexity of the mental health issue itself, or the different factors that is contributing to this person's mental health. It is complex, it's not easy. However, I think nothing is compared when you see someone getting better, when you see someone, quality of life improve, and the child maybe is because I work with children, adolescent mostly now, the child is able to go back to school or to be functioning again, or to actually gain the smile again, or to hear the child talking in a different tone, much more of a happier, relaxed tone. Nothing compares to that. So by end of the day, I always hold into these moments, to be honest. And as a psychologist, we always need the support. So in a professional environment, we have to do our job to the best, and to prevent ourselves from burning out. We usually have very professional practices, which is, for example, peer support. So we support each other. We have supervision. So we talk about the difficult cases. We consult with each other. We also self-reflect, because at the end of the day, we are human. And all these practices help from the person not to burn out. And I don't know if the person is referring, there's a common cliche, like, if you work with individuals with mental health, you'll be sick. And I always laugh, how is this possible? I never get it. But this is such a, it's really invalid information, because you can never get what the other person is having. You can feel for them, you can be affected as a human being, and that's normal. But then you have the safe space to work on that, or you have the supervision or peer support to work on that, and not to be overwhelmed by it. And that's why I think the training, the clinical training, when it comes to hospitals and working with moderate and severe mental health issues, here where the clinical training is essential, because it's not just about the skills, but it's about the professional practices. If I felt not safe for myself, or I felt that I cannot handle this case, or there's something else that's affecting me, how can I respond to it? This is also what we get to be trained at. So it's not just the skills of how to develop and deliver a certain therapy or something like that. I hope that I answered this person's question.
No, you did. You really did indeed. Talking about the psychology major or sector in general in the UAE back in the days, as well as now how much it improved and how much our graduates are becoming or graduating with a very different or an improved level that is being shown or clearly touched in the market or the mental health sector. There's still room for improvement. There's still things are missing. Nothing is perfect, and the space of improvement is still there. What do you see the future of the mental health sector in the UAE, or what is needed to be added in terms of education or the workplace itself?
I think I had that conversation with you before, and honestly, I'll be very ambitious, because I had the opportunity to see it somewhere else, and because I can compare and refer to that experience, I honestly deeply think that it's not impossible. We do have great graduates. We have a very good program. As I said, I had the opportunity to see and meet, psychology graduates from recent graduates or current psychology students, and I've seen the syllabus and I've seen what they actually get foundation, and I get really amazed, because it's a very good foundation. And honestly, if I compare it to anywhere else, it's really great. Even the amount of assignments and the research skills that they get trained on, or have opportunity for a graduate to be able to actually do research while they're in their bachelor degree right away is just an amazing achievement. I had people in my program at the doctorate who never had the opportunity to do any research or get it published. So I don't think the graduates know the level that they are in. However, there is room for improvement. And as I said, psychology as a profession, there's two type of knowledge that we need. The facts, which we do through the program. So, we learn the facts, the theories, and we get tested and we test our knowledge over and over to make sure that we conceptualized and we have that knowledge. But facts are not enough in our profession. So the other thing is the knowledge through skills, which comply, to the experience, right? So how can we make our graduates have those skills? Especially, I'm talking about the UAE. The UK, for example, they have their own system. They have their own expectation. But in a market like our market, I would say, or in the UAE, we need those graduates, but we need their skills. And more than the fact-based skills, we need the skills-based knowledge kind of skills. So I think my dream, and I hope one day, I can be even part of it. Honestly, the first thing that I even used to dream of while I was there is I used to say, why not we have a clinic at Zayed University, or we have, I know we are not a medical, we don't have a medical college, but, psychology as a science by itself, to have, an attached, clinic to the program where it can be run by the, by clinical psychologists, and the trainees might benefit from this experience, to be trained there and be monitored and receive supervision. And it's very much linked to the knowledge that they get at the university. And it can be at a master level. It doesn't have to be in a bachelor level. But even the bachelor level, they will be able to shadow the master level students and gain from that experience. As I said, our field, in terms of the clinical practice, we need time, and we need time to build those skills. And if we attach the program to a space where this is possible, I think it will be, there won't be a gap in the knowledge. And, the graduates will have some sort of skills that they can apply it anywhere else. The program will make sure that the skills is matching the knowledge they have. And at the same time, they can, because I know the problem is with the internship and getting the experience and getting the exposure. And at the same time, those graduates may run this clinic one day, and it's continuing, and they can do research through this clinic. So it kind of opens all kinds of doors. I know, we might think that is very hard to achieve. However, it's really not impossible. Given, in 10 years time, things already, I know things are changing in terms of the major and can see it. So I don't think it's impossible, and I hope one day, I can be part of it. I'll be very proud.
One day, hopefully, we'll meet again here on Let's Talk, Dr. Sarah, and we'll celebrate your dream being a reality in Zayed University. Hopefully, not too long. And yes, the sector is booming, and we need to further support to further boost it and flourish it. we're approaching the end of the session, but before doing that, would you give the psychology students or fresh graduates an advice?
Um, to be honest, I think, as I said, I named my talk. It's a quote action from a book I like, but mostly it's a journey within, because whatever you're gonna go through this journey of getting into the university, or getting through the major is going to impact you one way or another. So make it worth it. It won't be always great. And I think maybe I come across as, oh, everything was amazing and stuff like that. It wasn't easy. And there was many times where I had huge obstacles, especially after with the doctorate degree and stuff like that, and back in the university even. However, it's part of growing, so you don't expect the path to be paved and you just walk in slowly. Just make it worth it. Ask yourself, what am I going to learn from this? What can I do about it? Who can help me with it? How am I going to remember this in 10 years time, for example, like I'm doing now? I'm remembering many years ago when I was a graduate, and not even once I regret going through this journey. And I've learned a lot from it, and I feel now like I'm in my journey, I'm back home, kind of a thing. I'm back to where I started, which feels really very fulfilling. So that's my piece of advice.
Wonderful. Last thing is a word that you would explain your experience at Zayed University or Zayed University in general.
Whoa. Well, I don't know. Let me think. I mean, honestly, it's, as I say, I would honestly say motherland. It feels like I belong there. And I will never go by and say, oh, I'm a King's College graduate. Although I like and I value my experience, but I really feel more closer and much attached to Zayed University compared to Bristol University or King's College. Although I've had a great experience, but I think this is for me motherland.
Dr. Sarah, thank you so much for this very authentic, realistic, and positive talk. It's really a huge positive energy you have given our students and fresh graduates. We look forward to celebrate your dream together with Zayed University,
Inshallah,
and
one day.
inshallah, very soon. And
Thank you so
hopefully,
much.
sorry?
I was saying, sorry, I was saying thank you so much.
No, it's really a pleasure and honor, and indeed very proud to have you as a Zayed University alumni. Thank you so much for your time. All the best with your career success. And yes,
Thank
this is
you.
our first Let's Talk session, but hopefully not the last.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Hind, and it's really a pleasure. And thank you for everyone who have been sending comments and questions. We apologize for not answering everyone's question. If I can, later I might be able to respond, inshallah. But really thank you, Hind, for your understanding, for your great questions, and for your time and patience. You've been very patient as well with me preparing for this talk. Thank you.
The pleasure is ours, and good night. يعطيك العافية.
Allah yafik.
To the Zayed University valued community and to the professional community that is watching us from everywhere. As I always end my Let's Talk session saying COVID-19 has brought us closer using the online sessions when we used to hold it back in the university or the campuses. It's really very amazing and incredible to be part of everyone's night every now and then here on Let's Talk, to share valued experiences of a very well experienced Zayed University alumni of very different fields and bringing awareness to the community everywhere. Today's session was not only aligned with the mental health several days in the month of October, or the health month in general, but it also brought and opened our eyes a lot on a sector that has not been understood by the most here in the UAE, as well as indeed very proud and very honored to welcome one of the very first cohort alumni of Zayed University, who studied in different universities abroad and had a lot of experiences, yet called Zayed University the motherland. It was truly a pleasure to have her on Let's Talk today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your time. Always happy to receive your questions and feedback, not only here through YouTube and LinkedIn, but also through the different social media platforms, starting from Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the generic alumni email that the team handling the chat will post them all. مع السلامة until we meet very soon with another success story and another celebration here on Let's Talk. As I always end it, let's connect and stay tuned for our next sessions. Thank you so much. يعطيكم العافية وتصبحون على ألف خير.